Alright, welcome to the video, guys. Today we are going to be discussing the topic of why eating fermented food. Fermented? Bruh, I cannot English. What I'm going to do for you guys is I'm going to split this video into 3 different sections, and I'll have the timestamps posted in the description down below, and I'll put them up here as well. And the first section, we're going to go over what exactly fermented food is. Then in the second section, we're going to go over essentially what the physiological impacts and the health related reasons as to why eating fermented food is beneficial for you, and how it can help you reach a higher level of not only dietary diversity, but also improving just your overall well-being and health. And then lastly, for the third section, I'll go over some examples of fermented foods as well as some recipes along the way. Okay, so to start off, what exactly is fermented food? Because I know a lot of people have, at least recently, become a little bit more aware of different types of fermented food. Maybe while you're walking through the grocery store, you see all these different food items that tout health benefits because they have added probiotics and CFUs and, improved gut microbiota and, whatever and whatnot. But what exactly is fermented food? Now, there are many different ways to ferment food, and there are many different examples of fermented food itself. But fermentation, the process in which fermented food is created, fermentation is a natural process that basically, at least to my knowledge, every living organism does at least some form of. So for those of you who are not as well versed in biochemistry, fermentation is essentially a process in which certain organisms can take food, break down the food into glucose, and extract energy from breaking down the glucose even further without the use of oxygen. And so us humans most of the time rely on glycolysis or aerobic respiration to harness our energy from food. However, many microbes throughout the world often use fermentation as their main means of generating energy from glucose. In terms of fermented foods, fermentation often involves taking the byproducts of fermentation, such as acids, alcohols, etc., and using them to alter or process foods and change their biochemical makeup, mostly as a means to increase shelf life or a means of preservation. An example of this is pickling. Pickles are just pickled cucumbers, which essentially is just cucumbers that have sat in vinegar and salt. And a pickling solution most of the time is just a mixture of salt, vinegar, and water. You can break down the amino acids, the fat molecules, and alter carbohydrates in the sense that it gets the same allure of cooking and the same effect in terms of making the food able to be processed by your body without harming you. And it does this mostly by killing off bad bacteria. And again, this is achieved by creating an environment in which most microbes cannot live in, either being too acidic through the use of vinegars or other acids, or the concentration of salt is too high. And like regular mechanical cooking, all of this is done to basically make the food more digestible to us humans. So in quick summation, fermentation is a natural process in which you alter the biochemical makeup of food to both increase shelf life and make it more easily digestible. And in doing so, you're allowing the proliferation of certain bacteria in your gut, in which we will get into right now. And so before I get into the physiological impacts of eating fermented foods and supplementing more of them into your diet, I would quickly like to say that the main reason why I'm making this video is through inspiration of reading the book The Mind-Gut Connection by Dr. Erman Mayer, MD. This book is absolutely amazing, and it goes through all of the different things that I'm going to be talking about through this video, and it goes into super great detail about how the connection between your mind and your gut impacts both your physiology, your psychology, and how altering certain aspects of your diet can help improve those. So in the book, Dr. Mayer goes over essentially how eating different plant-based sources of food, such as obviously just a variety of fruits and vegetables along with fermented fruits and vegetables, that increased variety in your nutrition allows for the proliferation of a variety of different microbes in your gut. And having a higher microbial diversity in your gut leads to not only better gut health, which leads to improvements in your physiology, like how you feel throughout the day, but also your psychology, because the way your gut feels is a complete reflection of how your brain is going to feel. Now, I won't go too deep into the whole like vagus nerve connection with the enteric nervous system and all that stuff. All those details are outlined in the book. However, I'm gonna take a few snippets of what I found interesting in terms of how fermented foods specifically can help improve your overall health and well-being. Firstly, Dr. Mayer in the book says that diets low in plant-based fiber reduce the taxa abundance of a microbe known as Akkermansia mucophylla. This microbe in particular is specific for growing the mucosa lining of your gut. And this mucosa lining acts as the first layer of defense against pathogenic bacteria when they enter your gut from, say, food that's been contaminated. And some common examples of this you would know as either like E. coli, salmonella, listeria, stuff like that. Now, if you have a diet that is not high in plant-based sources of fiber, and you don't have a well enough abundance of this tax in particular, you could run the risk of having a thin mucus gut lining. This leads to what is colloquially known as leaky gut syndrome. And leaky gut syndrome, in essence, is when microbes within your gut lining kind of spill out into the rest of your body or your abdominal cavity, and your immune cells kind of view those as foreign invaders and will thus trigger an immune response. And this can lead to diseases such as metabolic toxemia, which has its own whole slew of problems, but most people will just note this as increased inflammation around their stomach and gut, which can cause obviously digestion issues, bloating, constipation, or like diarrhea, stuff like that. A whole mess of problems, really. Now, some people who obviously want to avoid that, they might think, okay, I don't want to develop any sort of diseases, but I also don't like fruits or vegetables, so I'm just going to take a probiotic and I'll be all right. Well, Dr. Mayer also outlines in his book that eating probiotics as an adult does not actually make them a permanent part of your gut microbiota, but a regular intake of fermented foods and probiotics can increase and maintain, the importance here is maintain, microbial diversity during states of stress. And not only that, but that can also normalize the metabolites that are produced by your microbiota. Now, I know I haven't gone over metabolites at all right now, and I won't really go too far into it, but just know that there are different things that your microbiota in your gut produce as a result of the food that you eat that are often known as metabolites, or basically just byproducts of them fucking living. Some examples of this can include, some of you may know, short chain fatty acids. This is seen as a good health indicator for lower chances of type 2 diabetes, obesity, different things like that. There's a whole bunch of research out there, that you can go look into, but I won't go too deep into it right now. Main point here is, though, eating lots of plant-based sources of fiber, such as fruits, vegetables, and different fermented foods, can help not only give you more diversity of the microbiota in your gut, but also maintaining that dietary practice helps, again, maintain that microbial diversity during times of stress, where in most cases, if you're not eating those foods, stress often alters your gut microbial composition and oftentimes leads to psychological issues with things such as like binge eating or patterns or bouts of depression, anxiety, things like that. And of course, that reciprocates and affects you physiologically. And it's just a whole downward spiral from there. It's really, really important that you do eat lots of plants, fruits, vegetables, things like that. And unfortunately, as much as we would like to just eat, Ben and Jerry's cereal and just take a probiotic and think we're gonna be all right, that's not how it works. Unfortunately, you're gonna have to actually grow the fuck up and eat your fucking vegetables. So for some of you who might be thinking, okay, I want to try to implement more fermented foods into my diet, but I don't know where to start. I don't know exactly what to look for. Well, for one, there are many different types of fermented foods, and oftentimes there are forms that people don't even know is fermented. If you're not a huge fan of fruits and vegetables, you could at least maybe try incorporating more of these into your diet, and that way you'll at least be getting some benefits from those fermented foods. Foods such as sourdough breads, yogurt, dark chocolate. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, dark chocolate is a fermented food. The process of which is very fascinating, and I recommend you go check it out. A quick little asterisk though, this is dark chocolate, not a fucking Hershey's bar. And so those are all just like a few examples of some very quick things that you can toss into your everyday life as like little side dishes and whatnot. But if you're looking for recipes with full meals, I do actually have 2 recipes on my YouTube channel. My vegan chili, which incorporates tempeh, a fermented soy-based product, and a miso pumpkin oatmeal that of course incorporates miso, which is another type of fermented soy, but it's used a little bit more in like as a mix-in as opposed to just eating it straight up, unless you're a fucking psychopath. So shameless plug on that. However, if you are looking to try to explore different types of pickling, because I do believe that it's a very fun process to just try to pickle your own vegetables, I'll link down in the description below Joshua Weissman's recipe guide onto how to pickle your own vegetables. And it's literally the easiest thing ever. It's a very easy way to incorporate not only more vegetables into your diet, but you also get the added benefits of the fermentation process that allow the food to be more easily digestible, as well as increase the diversity of your microbiota, which, as Dr. Erman Mayer shows, has not only physiological impacts, but psychological impacts. And so with that all being said, I'm gonna bring this video to a conclusion. I hope that you found it somewhat informative and, you know, got at least something out of it, or maybe some ideas in terms of what you could try in your own life to vary your diet.